And then later that day, I threw out the first pitch at a local baseball team's game. But hilariously, if it's your birthday and you're a child, you also get to throw out the first pitch. So I was one of 4 first pitches, and it wasn't even my birthday, and I'm not a child. Here I am on the mound. 3 children have just thrown pretty good throws. I threw it, and it looked great to me, but the catcher, it bounced, basically, on home plate, and I'm kinda like, Dude, I just saw you sprint, 5 yards diagonally to catch this child's throw. You couldn't have,
Ooh,
taken half a step forward?"
intentional?
They were probably like, "Who is this full-grown woman out there with those 7-year-olds?" Hi, everybody, and welcome to Good Vibes FC. I'm Sam Mewis, coming to you from the Women's Game World headquarters in Vermont.
And I'm Becky Sauerbrunn, coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
Before we get into the show, we just want to acknowledge that we are living in some crazy and frightening times right now. We hope that the next hour can be fun and make us all feel connected, but we are sending love out there to everybody who's listening. With that, Good Vibes FC is presented by our really great friends over at Olipop. So use code TWG20 for 20% off at drinkolipop.com. Today on the podcast, we're getting into the U.S. Women's National Team roster ahead of their upcoming friendlies against Ireland and Canada. We're also breaking down the last weekend of NWSL action before the summer break, and we'll be answering an email about the upcoming Euros. We are gearing up for our Euros coverage, which starts next week, and we want to hear from you. So send us all of your Euros-related questions. We'll answer some in upcoming podcasts. So email me any and all questions at womensgamemib@menandblazers.com. Also, this coming Monday, Becky and I will be together in DC with Raj for a Women's Game Men and Blazers live show presented by Allstate. We'll be joined by some incredible guests like U.S. Women's National Team and Washington Spirit midfielder Croy Bethune and Canada head coach Casey Stoney. We are so excited, so be sure to grab your tickets before they sell out. Becky,
Sam,
what's going on with you? I know you were away. Tell me all about it.
I was away. I was on my Babymoon. Zola and I went to Hawaii, to the Big Island,
Ugh.
and we just had a great time. We were there for like 6 days. We went on a couple hikes. I sent you a couple pictures. The
Yes.
hike, usually with hikes, you kind of like hike up and then you hike down on the way back. This was a hike down to the water and then a hike back up afterwards, which is way more difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. How are you doing that however many months pregnant you are?
Um,
How did that feel?
it felt fine. I mean, I have to take a couple more breaks
Yeah.
because I'm still supposed to keep my heart rate below like a certain heart rate. And so I would just like stop every now and then, grab some water, eat some trail mix. But yeah, it was really great. Zola went surfing. I watched him surf while I was just
Fun.
in the sand reading a book. Had some good food. We watched Love Island and a new show, which is so good, Department Q. It's on Netflix. Highly recommend it if you're into like noir and crime thriller and stuff. And so, yeah, it was just a great trip.
Okay, well, I'm very excited about Department Q. So this was like a Babymoon, right?
It was indeed. Yeah, I think after this next set of broadcasting, I'm going to be just kind of protecting that last trimester and doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing that I haven't been doing, like nesting and ordering things and figuring out what's about to happen.
That is so exciting. I'm so glad that you and Zola got away and got to do some of those things that you guys love doing that might take a little break when you have a little infant at first.
We're gonna just gonna take them wherever we go. Yeah, we're not gonna be shy about that.
Okay, well, that's so incredible. I'm so excited for you guys. Well, welcome back.
Thanks. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been great. I had a really nice weekend. I'm just feeling super refreshed this week and just inspired to just get back out here, but I had a nice weekend. I um did a bunch of Vermont stuff. It was so fun. We had friends in town. I don't know if people who are OG listeners to this podcast, last year I was talking all about doing this aqua bike, which is a triathlon without the run. So it's a swim bike race. And people in my life are getting very confused. Was this your big swim race in Lake Tahoe? No. This was just a local swim bike situation, the same one I did last year. Sorry, I have a bug in my airspace. um, and it was really fun. We did it with my friend who came up to do it, loved doing it. And then later that day, I threw out the first pitch at a local baseball team's game, the Lake Monsters.
The Lake
Um,
Monsters, what a great name.
I know. How incredible. It's actually kind of a funny story because I realized when my friends were in town, we wanted to go to this game. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy tickets and we'll go. And then I was just like, wait a minute, I'm gonna DM these folks. I'm gonna DM these people and just see if I can get some free tickets and like see if I can maybe throw out the first pitch. So I literally basically just asked
You name
if
dropped
like I
yourself.
could, I like name dropped myself on Instagram DMs and was like, hey, I'd love to come to a game this summer. Like, wanted to see if you guys maybe wanted to do like some social. Like, what does that mean, Sam? I don't know. And then they wrote back and they were like, yeah, throw out the first pitch. And I was like, sick. But hilariously, if it's your birthday and you're a child, you also get to throw out the first pitch. So I was one of 4 first pitches and it wasn't even my birthday and I'm not a child.
Was it a strike? Like, was it a good throw?
No, it bounced.
It bounced where?
So, okay, let me take a moment. Realize we're doing this. I have also, not to toot my own horn, I have thrown out the first pitch at Fenway. When we won the World Cup, me and Alyssa Nair, we've told the story a lot on the show, got to throw out the first pitch at Fenway for the Red Sox. Very sick. Obviously, I'm rusty from that. That was a decent throw. It was the guy who had to stand up and catch it above his head, but like he caught it
Oh,
and it was fine, but it was a little bit high. So going into this, round 2, first pitch at a baseball game, I'm practicing. Pat and I bought baseball gloves, mitts. We've been playing catch in the backyard every day, like
I love
all
it.
week, practicing, training. Here I am on the mound. 3 children have just thrown pretty good throws. I threw it and it looked great to me, but the catcher, like, it bounced like basically like on home plate.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like, dude, I just saw you sprint like 5 yards diagonally to catch this child's throw. You couldn't have
Ooh,
like taken half a step forward.
intentional?
They were probably like, who is this full grown woman out there with those 7-year-olds?
I threw out one pitch for the Royals when I was playing for FC Casey, and we were practicing. It was like Heyo, A-Rod. I think it was the 3 of us. And we practiced for like the whole week. We were like, we are not embarrassing ourselves. And then Heyo wanted to do some sort of like, let's juggle the soft or the baseball before we throw it. And I was like, why are we just upping the chances of embarrassing ourselves? Let's just like work on throwing a really nice strike.
It's tough when you're under pressure like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, I'm really not, it wasn't that bad. All part of just a really fun Vermont summer weekend. So I'm just feeling refreshed this week.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm going through a little bit of like a funk from the post vacation.
Yeah, come down. This is a Sunday scary situation.
Yeah, a little bit.
Becky, what I'm trying to do is wrap my head around the fact that we don't have any NWSL for like 5 weeks. Like, I feel like my whole life revolves around the NWSL. So I am wrapping my head around that, preparing myself for the Euros, which I'm also so excited about. But first, we have 3 U.S. Women's National Team games to talk about and a really exciting roster with lots of new faces and even more insight into what Emma Hayes is thinking. I'm going to read off the roster. We know it came out last week, but we haven't read it out loud on the show yet. So in goal, the players called in are Angelina Anderson, Claudia Dickey, and Mandy McGlynn. Defenders, and there's 10 defenders, which is actually something I might want to chat with you about, Becky.
Yeah.
We've got Carrie Abello, Jordan Bug, Naomi Girma, Lily Reel, Tara McKeown, Avery Patterson, Izzy Rodriguez, Emily Sams, Emily Sonnet, and Giselle Thompson. In midfield, we have Croy Bethune, Sam Coffey, Claire Hutton, Rose Lavelle, Sam Meza, and Olivia Moultrie. And then for forwards, we have Lynn Biondolo,
Hey.
Michelle Cooper, Yasmin Ryan, Emma Sears, Ali Sentnor, and Alyssa Thompson. Becky, what anything, if anything, stands out to you upon, first seeing this roster?
I think because the European-based players are getting some rest,
Yeah.
what stands out the most is just how exciting it is for some of these younger players or less experienced players that are showing well in the league, or they got invited into the 23s and they showed well there and they're getting their
Mhm.
first looks with the senior team. We've talked time and time before, like how hard it is sometimes just to get your foot into the door. And so to have this opportunity to show with the senior team to play against 2 opponents that are pretty freaking good, like Ireland and Canada, like those are great games. And so I'm just really excited about the opportunity for these players.
I am too. The thing that stuck out to me the most was seeing Rose back in the mix.
Of
Obviously,
course.
Rose Lavelle has been out injured for all of 2025 with the national team. She did make her return to Gotham just a couple of weeks ago. She started for the first time this past weekend with Gotham. I have made myself very clear on this podcast. Rose is always my first choice when we're talking roster. Like, I think, of course, she's one of my best friends, but I just have so much respect for her as a player. I think she brings something that nobody else can. And it's just this like real, true creativity and flair and attacking vision coupled with a willingness and an effectiveness defensively that is particularly rare for a player of that kind of 10 profile. I feel like so many times that creative 10 doesn't really have to defend because they're just out there to like do Maradonas and rainbows basically. But Rose chases back better than anybody. So I'm really excited for her that she's back with the national team. It's going to be really fun to see her come into this midfield.
I mean, how many times did we watch like the breakdowns of our games, and there was always that special section for like effort and like what it
Yeah.
means to be a women's national team player, and it would be Rose making like a 50-yard sprint back and a slide tackle. Like she
Yeah.
featured heavily in a lot of those.
Well, I know, and I think that that defensive quality, like, kind of goes under the radar, maybe for, like, fans, but I remember specifically some of those clips that you're talking about, Becky, like, I would have subbed on, so I should be the fresh one, and in the clip, Rose is sprinting past me back on defense, and I'm like, "I've been playing for 30 seconds, like, it should be me," and it's Rose, and so I just think that she brings something so unique. She's also getting to play at home in Cincinnati for the first time since 2017. For anybody who has ever interacted with Rose, you know how much Cincinnati means to her. And I think there's got to be something really special about returning to your hometown to play, to have all these friends and family come out to see you, which Becky, you actually kind of just experienced in St. Louis with your retirement game.
Yeah, did I ever? It was like the celebration that just never stopped. It was retirement, it was pregnancy, it was birthday, and it just never stopped. But it is really awesome to play in your hometown. I mean, you think about all the markets all over the world that the women's national team could play in and have played in. And so to actually have games in your market, it's like super rare. We know Rose absolutely loves Cincy, real family person. So I think that's great that she's back just in time for this game.
I know, I am too. I'm so excited for her. Corey Bethune is also back in the mix in the midfield for the first time since the Olympics last summer, after which she suffered that knee injury. She's been working her way back to full fitness with the Washington Spirit these past few months. And I think that these two midfielders returning to the national team are like a real boost. Not that the midfield hasn't been good in recent friendlies. I think we've talked so much about players like Lily Johannes and Claire Hutton demonstrating very clearly that they have bright futures with the US women's national team. But I think that Rose and Croy both kind of bring that, like I was saying before, threatening, creative 10 profile to this team. And their addition back into this roster kind of has the potential to add another layer to that group, to that position that we maybe haven't seen as much depth in that as we've had up top, for example.
I think I disagree with you a little bit there with the 10 spot. I think there's actually a lot of players on the roster in the pool that prefer to play in the 10. What I do agree with is that I think Rose and Croy do bring a different profile of what they can do in that 10. I think, like you said, they can drive with the ball. They can beat players off the dribble. They can spring other players. They offer up creativity in and around the 18. So it's great to be adding that to an already what I would consider deep position, because I think you can put Ali Sentnor there, Kat Macario can play there, Lindsay Horan can play there. So I actually think there's quite a few people that can play the 10, but they're all very different profile. And so just to add a different one, I think just like makes a important position already like a little bit more special with the national team.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it is added depth. You're right to point out that all those players can certainly play there in that 10. Um, and I love that you disagreed with me. I think it's like so interesting.
So rare. So rare does this
So
happen.
rare, but I am gonna now double down and defend a little bit. I just feel like the players most suited to play the 10 are fit the profile of Rose and Croy. And so I'm excited to see them back in. I'm also excited to see how the depth continues to evolve. I think that we're now starting to have more and more players who can play in that midfield, to your point. So we'll see who gets the starts. We'll see who gets minutes there. There's 3 games this camp, which kind of tells me we're going to see a lot of different things. So seeing how those players like link up together is going to be really cool. There's another midfielder joining, Sam Meza. Sam is a first-time call-up who plays for Seattle. She was in with the 23s earlier this month. And I feel like we've been mentioning Sam Meza a lot on this podcast, particularly because she's had a really interesting path now to the full national team. She went out on loan from Seattle last season to play in the USL for the Dallas Trinity. And when she came back to Seattle, it just seemed like she has really benefited from that decision to kind of leave the NWSL temporarily, go play in the USL, get a lot of minutes, get a lot of reps. And it seems to me like she's just come back full of confidence. And Becky, what I was actually hoping was if you could speak a little bit to how there are just so many different paths to the top now. so many of these players have not taken this like linear route to the national team. And I would love to hear like your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's so great, and I was watching the Seattle-Utah game and was looking out for her specifically because of this call up, and I was really impressed. I mean, she really got herself out of some sticky situations. She made some good decisions. She sprung some of her Seattle players for fast breaks. I think Lynn even mentioned her as being kind of the engine of the midfield, and you could really see it. It was like a solid and really confident performance. And I just love it. It just goes to show that the more opportunities players have, the more likely it is for them to find a situation that allows them to just flourish and like to have max growth. And like for one player going and playing 4 years in college and having kind of that, you have a short season and then you have a longer spring season and developing in that kind of like slower, methodical way, like that can be great for somebody. And then for another player, going, hey, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go straight to the pros, either the NWSL or the Super League. And maybe potentially having to sit behind a more established player, but like you learn the ropes of the environment, what it means to be a professional, like that can lead to a lot of growth. Or like, I'm going to go overseas and you can play for a top tier, you can play for a second or third division team, and you get a lot of games. And it's really about like that human growth of being
Hmm.
outside of your comfort zone. Like that can really help somebody. And so Sam Meza's story about, okay, you go to Seattle, you put on loan with the Dallas Trinity, and you just find a situation where you just like bloom. And then you play a lot of minutes and you transfer that back over to the
Yeah.
team that loaned you out. And you're a baller. Like you're coming in and it's like, oh my gosh, where have you been? And so I think it's so amazing that even a decade ago, we did not have a lot of these options and these opportunities. And so the growth of the game, allowing these opportunities, and just like it's really about putting the person in the right situation and just like watching them bloom. And it's so cool that it's happening now.
Totally agree. Let's talk about what feels to me like Emma's search for depth at the outside back position. I mentioned when I read the roster, 10 defenders being called into this camp, which is definitely a lot. And as we mentioned on this podcast last week with Lynn, Emma Hayes is not calling in European based players to this camp so that they can have a rest. Those players are on a different schedule, and this is really their only opportunity to take a break. So we'll be without outside backs Emily Fox and Crystal Dunn this camp. In their place, there's room for newer outside backs to potentially get some reps and some game time, players like Avery Patterson and Carrie Abello, who saw game time last camp, but also players like Gotham rookie Lily Reel and Kansas City defender Izzy Rodriguez. Becky, have any of these players been standing out to you in the league such that you're like, yeah, of course they're getting called in?
I mean, honestly, all four of the players that you just mentioned have been impressive. And I think of all the positions on the field, the outside back position has evolved the most. And as the players what is being asked of them has just like grown and grown. And it's not enough to be just a good defender anymore, to just get stuck in and win your 1v1 duels. These players are being asked to like get up and down the field. They're often the width that needs to be provided in the attack. Sometimes when the team is building in their defensive half, they invert to like add another number into the midfield. And so they're just being asked to do all these new things. And so these players in particular, I think they've all demonstrated that they are tactically adept, technically efficient, and yeah, they can also defend when they need to defend. So they've all been very impressive in their own rights.
I know. I hearing you say that, it's so true, and it's so interesting that the outside back position is asked to have a such a evolved and like well-rounded player profile. We talked so much on your episode that we did with Steve Swanson about like true defenders and how almost rare that is these days. And I find that as we're going naming through all these players, like Avery Patterson is like scoring goals for Houston. Izzy Rodriguez is like one of the best crossers of the ball. Lily Reel is scoring goals for Gotham. Lily Reel is getting up and down the field. I'm finding it so interesting that not only are defenders like this expected to be true defenders, but they're supposed to have these attacking qualities and goal scoring tendencies and be dangerous in the air. Um, Something really interesting to note about Carrie Abello, Lily Reel, and Izzy Rodriguez is that they're all left footed. And I think it's kind of like a rarity that three left footed outside backs are being called into national team camp all at the same time. And I was thinking about this so much in the last couple weeks when I was coaching about the challenges of playing left back as a right-footed player. And Becky, I really want to hear from you what you think about when you hear that one, there are three left footers going into camp for this position, but how hard it is for somebody who's right-footed to play left back and why.
Yeah, that's, like, pretty much my entire career was being a left back and a left center back as a right-footed player, and I think it's great that there are options, left-footed options, because I think back in our program's history, there hasn't been a lot of true left-footed players on the left side of the field, and I think you see now in the global game, you actually switch and put, like, the left-footed player on the right side so that they can cut inside and be a little bit more dangerous. So, like, tactically, there are ways to kind of, like, get around it, but to be a left-footed player on the left side, you just open up so much more of the field, and as an outside back, the types of balls that you can supply your attacker, like, if you need to drive a left-footed ball over the back line 40 yards out, no problem. If you need to bend a ball with the inside of your foot around a defender to get it to your attacker's, like, lead foot, okay, no problem at all. It just opens the field, and as a left-footed player, like, you want the ball to go across your body to, like, you can take that attacking touch. Your prep touch is a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier. As a right-footed player, sometimes when it's gets a little panicky, a little risky, you wanna cut it back onto your right side, which is, like, a little bit more dangerous because then you're cutting it into the field. And so it just allows for a little bit more confidence, maybe a bit more proficiency.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and is a great note for me to store away for my coaching in the future. Okay, so we're playing Ireland twice. Ireland sadly will not be at the Euros this summer, but they will have some familiar players on their roster like courage midfielder Denise O'Sullivan and San Diego wave forward Kyra Carusa. Unfortunately for Arsenal fans, Katie McCabe was unavailable for selection, so she won't be here playing for Ireland in these games. But Becky, what would you expect to see from Ireland, and what do you think US fans should look out for on Thursday in our first matchup?
Ireland, they are very disciplined defensively in their structure. They defend individually very well. Against us, they often, like, did a fast break, and so they kind of held, like, a lower bit of a block, but when they go, they all go, and it's super dangerous, and they never give up on a play, and I love that Denise O'Sullivan is gonna be playing because I think she's in such great form right now, so I think she's really gonna test our midfield. I do wish Katie McCabe was
Yeah.
available because she's such an amazing defender, and I really would have enjoyed watching our attackers go up against a player like that who would have made their days very, very difficult.
I know. It's one of those things where you're like, we want to win, but you also like want to beat teams at their best with all their best players because you want to be challenged in the most way and really be forced to play your best. I agree. I think Ireland is going to give us two really good games. You're going to be broadcasting. I'll be watching from home. After that first game, I'll be going live on our YouTube channel afterwards with Megan Klingenberg, which I'm very excited about. We'll play Ireland again on Sunday. Becky still broadcasting. I'll be going live with Heyo.
Okay.
How fun is
That'll
that?
be super fun.
I'm really looking forward to it. And then everyone, Reba, we're all traveling to DC for the big finale of this international window. That's the US Women's National Team versus Canada. Before the game, Becky, 2 nights before the game on June 30th, Yumi and Raj are hosting the live show at the Howard Theater. Why do you think this game and this rivalry is like such a big deal, Becky? Like, what makes USA versus Canada so intense and so special?
I mean, we've played Canada so much in the history of this program. They're geographically close. We've played with and against a lot of the Canadians through the years, either through the youth teams or the college system and now pro. And we've talked about it before that when you go against people that you know and you know well, it just gets a little bit more heated. And I think because historically, the US has been very successful against the Canadians. Our loss in Tokyo 2021 Olympics in the semis. That's like, if I think about it, maybe the only loss in my career to the Canadians. And I think that just pisses them off and then that pisses us off and then it's just a game. It's just like a rad, heated, awesome game.
I know. It is. It really is like a true rivalry and there's so much history to it now and like so many iconic moments from it. So, in honor of this Canada versus the US Women's National Team game, the women's game is pulling together some extra content for all of you. Not only are we doing this live show with special guests Casey Stoney, Corey Bethune, and even some very special WNBA players, we also want to answer your questions about the rivalry on a special episode of Sammy Banana Phone. So, Call me, ask me whatever you want to know about maybe some of the most iconic moments between the USA and Canada. You can also ask about Tim Hortons versus Dunkin' Donuts. Ask me about two of the best female coaches in the game facing off against each other with Casey Stoney and Emma Hayes. I can't wait to hear your questions. You can call me at 855-611-4050 or send an email to womensgamemib@manoflares.com. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, everybody, we need to take a quick break, but we'll recap this weekend in NWSL when we get back. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, Becky, let's talk NWSL. It was the last weekend of games before a long 5-week break, and it was the halfway point of the season. Some teams that went out on a high, definitely Kansas City, who are now 8 points clear of second place Orlando. They won their game against Angel City 1-0, thanks to a goal from Bia and a PK save from goalkeeper Lorena. This is leading me to a really great question, which is going to be our Olipop gut check of the week. So I'm pretty excited about that.
What do you got this week?
Vintage cola.
Oh, classic root beer.
Classic root beer for a classic gal.
Oh, stop.
This is our Olipop gut check of the week. We're halfway through the season. Becky, do you think that Kansas City can keep this up and run away with the Shield? Or do you think it's possible to stop them at this point?
I think if they can find a way to continue this momentum through the second half of the season, then it would be really tough for any team to catch up with them. I do think last season there was a bit of a form dip. They kind of lost their way just a little bit and wound up ending the regular season in fourth while other teams kind of found their momentum. And so I think if they can find a way to avoid that, maybe they have to do some rotations, maybe adjust tactics a little bit, make sure everyone stays healthy, then yeah, I think that they can win the regular season for sure.
I think that at this point, 8 points clear, halfway through the season, to me, they've shown like really no signs of weakness. I'm like going Kansas City. I think it's impossible to stop them.
Okay.
Impossible. And you know how much I love to give hot takes.
You do love yourself a hot take.
That was our Lollipop Gut Check of the week. My opinion, Kansas City's running away with it. Another team that's got to be feeling pretty good is Louisville. I feel like every single time I've been bringing up Louisville lately, this has been my tone. Okay, Louisville. They beat Orlando this weekend 2-0, thanks to goals from Aaron Wright and Taylor Flint, plus 7 saves from goalkeeper Jordan Bloomer. Becky, what is Louisville doing right? And do you think they can like finally get over that line and make playoffs this year?
I do think they can make playoffs. I think I talked to you a few weeks back about their XG and mentioned how their data was showing that they were actually playing better than the results that they were getting. So I'm wondering if this is the moment when the realities of the data finally like marry up with their results. And it's a huge, huge win for them. And I really do think that they can make playoffs and break that. Was it ninth place
Yeah.
curse?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
I think they can
ninth,
do it.
like, literally every year, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so tough."
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think they can do it.
I think they're sitting in 7th right now. Um, they're doing something right, and so I'm excited for them. I'm excited to see how the second half of the season goes. The 5-week break, though, is throwing me for a loop. I'm like, you know, sure, a lot could change for Kansas City, a lot could change for Louisville, a lot could change for Utah. Like, we're kind of at all these different points in the table. Like, 5 weeks is a long break.
Yeah,
Um
we've never done that before. Not that long. We've always done group stage and
Yeah, and then
then
they come back a little bit sooner.
yeah, 5 weeks is really long. I'm really intrigued to see, like you said, what teams can really make strides, but then what teams this momentum might break because it's a long
So
break.
long. And I know some teams have like friendly and exhibition games, but I do think it's a really long break to not be in that regular cadence of games. Obviously, one of the weeks is the mandated NWSL CBA break, but it's super interesting. Another team kind of on the playoff line, but who had a big win over Houston this weekend was North Carolina. They're sitting in ninth, which actually tied on points with Gotham. But Jaden Shaw scored her first goal for the club this weekend. And it feels like the Courage have had a bumpy road so far this year. That transition for Jaden hasn't been as smooth as we all would have loved, but this could be just the beginning for this team. Houston's Avery Patterson scored early, but then Sarah Puntingham got a second yellow card and Houston had to finish the game with 10. Jaden Shaw had just subbed on and was able to finish her chance after a brilliant run into the box from Malia Berkeley. Becky, did you see anything special on this goal from Jaden Shaw, or was it just like the gods finally opened the door for her?
I mean, why not both? But I do think the run from Malia Berkeley was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The pass, perfect pace. It's on a platter. I think watching Jaden's movement, she doesn't get into the box too soon. She knows the space that she wants to get into, but she's a little bit more patient. And then when she does get the ball, she slots it really calmly into the far post. And I think a lot of players in that situation would just try to hit it as hard as they possibly can. And so I think it was just a very like cool, calm finish, a very good first goal for Jaden.
Which, to give her even more credit, like, Jaden's had a tough start to the year, and, like, I'm sure she's, like, playing this in her mind that she hasn't scored yet, and to then be set up with this kind of ball on a platter, I would have smashed it. I would have tried. I probably would have gone 10 yards over the goal. But to retain that calmness in that situation with all of maybe, this like, playing through her mind, I think I give her so much credit for finishing that in the way that she did. I'm obviously really pumped to see North Carolina come back, finish that game off. Hannah Betford scored the game winner. Seattle also won their game. They beat Utah 4-1. Utah still only has one win on the year. And like we were just talking about, they really need to find something during these 5 weeks to help them get some points. Portland beat Chicago 1-0. The Spirit and the Wave tied 0-0, and Gotham won 2-1 over Bay, with Esther Gonzalez continuing her prime form ahead of the Euros. Esther scored her 10th goal, keeping her in the lead for the Golden Boot, and really surely setting herself up for just like a phenomenal summer with her Spain team in Switzerland at the Euros. And that's kind of where I want to transition us to, Becky. The Euros start next week. We have a bunch of NWSL players heading over to play for their national teams. Does anybody heading into the Euros really jump out at you as someone you've just enjoyed watching this season here in the NWSL?
Yeah, that would be Delphine Cascarino, San Diego, French international. Played against her last year, watching her this year. She just is in clearly such good form. And she's playing against some of the best outside backs, I think, in the world. And she's doing crazy things with the ball. She's good off the dribble. She makes smart runs. She's putting in some good crosses. And France already is just this really interesting team in the major tournaments. They just can't get over that line and win that trophy, win that championship. And with all the drama with the roster selections, I think a lot of eyes are already going to be on this team. And so I feel like having a player in form like Cascarino really ups their chances and just makes it exciting to watch them.
Totally agree. There are a couple of other players that I'm really looking forward to seeing this summer in the Euros. From Gotham, and Katrin Berger will be playing for Germany in goal. And when I was like preparing for this, kept thinking about those PK saves that she made at the Olympics last summer, especially the one at the end of the bronze medal match against Spain. She
Oh my
saved
gosh.
Alexi Putellas' penalty kick and
Yeah.
got Germany their bronze medal.
I forgot about that. Yes, big, big player. And then her fiance, Jess Carter, will be playing for England, as well as the Spirits' Esme Morgan, holding down that back line. Two really good defenders, also really in form right now in the NWSL. So that'll be cool to see the defenders, showing up well in the Euros as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's also Jess Fishlock, who will be leading Wales to their first ever major tournament. Could be a Cinderella story in the making, but Wales are like pretty big underdogs. I think so much about like what this means to Jess, who has been like a really iconic footballer globally, but obviously has never gotten to play in one of these major international tournaments with her national team. And Jess is just such a passionate player. So getting to see her go and represent Wales in the Euros is something that like I imagine all NWSL fans are really excited about.
I mean, their first ever
I
major
know.
tournament. That has got to be so cool. I bet she is just so stoked.
I know.
I want to give Portland a little shout out. We got Issa Obeys. She's defender. I played with her last year. Young, talented. She can really get stuck into a tackle. Her passing is great. She's young. She's 22. She's been playing with the senior squad since 2022. And Denmark, I think also an underdog, like you could say. They had a little bit of trouble in the Nations League, and their group is pretty tough. I think they're playing Germany, Sweden, and Poland.
I think that, and we're doing a lot more Euros coverage, but I do think that some of these teams in the Euros can come away from the tournament feeling good if they perform well and like compete to get out of their group. But obviously, there are some like clear front runner countries and a couple of really difficult groups. So we'll get more into that. We also have some future NWSL players who signed for teams in the transfer window but haven't appeared here yet, like Sofia Cantore, who will join the Washington Spirit as the first ever Italian player in the NWSL, and Svendis Johnsdottir, an Icelandic forward who is signed with Angel City. Like I said, we've got a lot more Euros preview coverage. I know we're only scratching the surface of all of these amazing players that we want to watch this summer. So make sure you stay tuned this week for some additional information. We do have to take one more quick break, but when we get back, we've got an email from Mia about the pressure that these European players are facing this summer. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get to the inbox, I do want to shout out the other big international tournaments happening this summer: the Women's Africa Cup of Nations kicking off on July 5th, and the Copa America Femenina starting on July 12th. These tournaments are two more really exciting ways to watch your favorite NWSL players this break, like Barbara Banda and Rachel Kundananji, who were called up for Zambia for the WAFCON.
It's so crazy that two of the best and most informed players in the NWSL will be taking the field together. But when you look at who's playing for Brazil in the Copa America, it's like they're building their own NWSL All-Star squad. They've got Lorena, Gabby Portillo, and of course, they've got Marta.
Sadly, both of these tournaments are kind of tricky to watch here in the US unless you have a VPN, but we will keep you posted on how your favorite players and teams are doing. Let's go over to the inbox. We got an email from Mia that reads, "Hi, Sam, Lynn, and Becky. I'm Mia and a longtime listener, first time emailer. With the Euros coming up, I've been thinking about outside pressure on players during the tournament. The Lionesses' win in 2022 was huge for English women's soccer, boosting attendance and turning their players into superstars. How does a team like Switzerland deal with the added pressure that a successful tournament could be tied with the growth of women's soccer in their country? And do you all think it's fair to put that expectation on the team?" I hope that made sense. And thank you so much, Mia from Florida. Mia, I really like this question. I think it's so interesting. Becky, do you think that Switzerland is under the same kind of pressure as England was in 2022?
I wish I knew more Swiss players so I could ask him this. I think hosting any tournament in your country brings a lot of added pressure. And I think about when we played in Canada, how it was kind of the best of both worlds, that we were close, but we weren't the host nation. And so we had a lot of fans, but we didn't have Canada's pressure. And so, yeah, I will say it does bring an added element of pressure. What I will say is that the possibility of what could happen in Switzerland with the growth of the game, with bringing all these eyes, I think that should, if you can change your perspective to see it as like an opportunity, that this could be the moment that really puts Swiss soccer on the map and really brings more eyes. And so I feel like if you can change your perspective to see it that way, that's great. But I understand that, yeah, it is added pressure.
I agree completely. It keeps making me think about the World Cup in Australia in 2023, in Australia and New Zealand, and how, like, have you seen that video that went viral of literally every single back of the plane seat screen was the Australia game?
Yes.
And like, I just feel like even though Australia didn't win the World Cup, it was such like a sensation, and in a similar way to what happened in England in 2022, these players like just got catapulted into like more stardom. And like, I remember Courtney Vine, who scored like a game-winning penalty kick, was like became like a household name overnight. And I think that, like I was kind of saying a few minutes ago, I think that there is more than one way for a nation to win at this tournament. I don't necessarily think that a country like Wales is competing to win the Euros, but getting to this tournament for Wales is a win. Performing well and scoring a goal could be a huge win. I remember even talking to Ali Riley about the first time that New Zealand won an Olympic game in a group stage was like they had never won one before, and they've gone to
Yep.
the Olympics so many times. And so I think it's reframing the expectation. Of course, there are teams that are going to the Euros and they're expected to win, and there's a ton of pressure on them. I'm looking at you, Spain, England, Germany, maybe even Sweden. But I think for some of these other teams, they should set goals, internally and externally, whatever, that they can accomplish, that they'll consider as a win. They might not do that, at first and be like, yeah, our goal here is to just score a goal or win a game. But I do think that that's a reasonable expectation and like would be a victory for some of these teams.
Yeah, I think back to 2011 when our World Cup in Germany, we wound up losing in the final to Japan, a very dramatic game. And we get back to the States and, we're like, we didn't win. No one's going to care. But really, it was one of those like catalyst moments where after 1999, we did as much as we could with that huge inflection moment. And then we had this other one. And even though we had lost the tournament, it was still like, oh, we had a lot of people watching. There was still a lot of interest around the team. we still started the NWSL pretty much closely right after that, and so we really rode the wave of a loss. And it really was just like it's how you lose. It's the story that you
Yeah.
provide the people that are watching.
Yeah. I think that makes so much sense. Mia, I really liked this question. So thank you so much for writing in. I hope that Switzerland as a team, recognizes this opportunity that they have to make an impact on young players in their country. And I'm sure that no matter the outcome for them on the field, this will be a huge win for their country and especially for women's soccer in Switzerland. Mia, loved your question. Don't forget, everybody, you can all write us with questions. I love hearing from you all, and sometimes we even read them aloud on this show or on our other show. So send us an email at womensgamemib@menandblazers.com. Becky, we are nearing the end of the podcast, but I am very excited because, as you know, we do a regular segment with Lynn that just birthed out of Lynn's frustrations with the world at times. It's called Sick and Tired. And
Okay.
I wanted to see if you wanted to give us a Sick and Tired this week.
Well, I can give you an airport edition. I don't think I've done that with you before, have I?
Give us the airport edition of Sick and Tired.
Okay. Queuing up for lines and people that don't stick to the line and they just kind of
Hate it.
try to phase themselves in at the front. That's very frustrating. Sick and tired of that. And then when you're picking up your bags at the carousel and you provide like 4 feet of space so that everyone can see all the bags coming down the little carousel, and people just get right in front of you. They get right up next to it. So you're like looking through legs, trying to find, is that your bag? And then you're kind of like lifting 50 pounds and like hitting people with it. So I just like, can't we just keep a nice space so that everyone can see equally and like just prevent people from getting bumps and stuff from huge luggage?
Yeah, we should. We absolutely should. I'm sick and tired of that for you. You know what I'm sick and tired of? Mosquitoes.
Oh, do you have a lot in Vermont?
Yeah, we sure do.
We don't have that many in Portland.
I think it's just because we're like out here in Lakeland.
Yeah, a lot of just water.
Lots of lakes, woods, water.
Yeah.
I learned that mosquitoes lay their eggs in like standing water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. And I think, yeah, there's some standing water around these parts. So I'm sick of mosquitoes. I've been like trying to figure out, is there like an ecological like benefit to mosquitoes? And like, I actually don't think there is.
Did you Google it?
I'm going to Google it right now.
Okay.
Are mosquitoes good for anything? They do play a role in the ecosystem. They serve as a
Obviously.
food source for various animals, including bats, birds, fish, frogs, and dragonflies. Some mosquitoes pollinate certain plants.
That's important.
Mosquitoes can transmit diseases that help regulate insect populations. I don't know, man. Anyways, you know what? I will halfway rescind. If mosquitoes are good for the earth,
Thumbs up.
then thumbs up to mosquitoes. If they're, less beneficial than maybe some other insects, I hate them. Um, okay. I got myself into a little bind there, literally proving that mosquitoes are beneficial, and I was not anticipating that. Let's turn this frown upside down, Becky, and let's leave our beautiful listeners with a good vibe at the end of this episode.
Absolutely. So, Pride Month, and you know that I am an ambassador for Athlete Ally. We had the Athlete Ally Activism Summit about 10 days ago, and it brings together college athletes, coaches, administrators, like all with a plan to build a future of sports where everyone belongs. And it was all about like championing allyship in and through sport. And I was on this panel with Coach Jackie J. And if you don't know who this person is, look her up on Instagram. She's this amazing influencer, loves women's sports. She elevates people's stories in such like a thoughtful, compassionate, humorous way. She's so freaking hilarious. And we just sat and talked about women's sports, how to use our platform to be the best allies and advocates that we can be. I talked about our Players Association. I talked about how our national team has come together for things like equal pay, but also how we've struggled to come together about certain things and like directions to take when it comes to certain issues, and how these conversations sometimes they go well, sometimes they don't go well, because a lot of these student athletes are put in positions where they believe something so strongly, but the players and teammates around them don't. So how to like structure these critical conversations, what can happen, the consequences, the good things that can happen, finding resources, finding your community. And it was such a good vibe and so powerful. And I'm so glad that I got to do it.
That's so awesome, Becky. I'm so happy that you were part of that. Whenever I think about how we like got equal pay, the first word that comes to mind is that we like did it together. We had this like collective action. And I think that when you're trying to make change, when I'm, trying to involve myself in activism or make change, I so often lean on my teammates still, you, Lynn, joining a group and being a part of like a collective idea is so much more powerful than doing it on your own. And so this conversation about how to create change and kind of advocate for what you believe in when you may be the one of the only ones in the group who feels that way for people like college athletes, that's really really important. And I'm so glad that you did that and shared that with us. So I love that. Also, just a shout out because this is our last Good Vibes episode during Pride Month. Both Becky and I are doing Playing for Pride. So we will leave the links to our pages in the show notes, but you can join us in donating to Athlete Ally. And Becky, I have not been exactly tracking my number of podcasts that I will make my donation for, but I'm getting up there.
I can imagine.
I'm
You
getting up
are
there.
yeah,
How's your miles going?
miles are going pretty good with these hikes. Like I'm really accumulating some miles. And so I'm doing kind of like I'll check in every week and a half, 2 weeks and kind of update it. And so I need to update it. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
getting up there.
Okay, great. Well, if everybody wants to join us in being part of Playing for Pride, it's not too late. It is still June. My good vibe, Becky, is that this morning I woke up early with Pat and we walked down the street to the lake and I did my swim workout in the lake and Pat paddleboarded next to me and he did not capsize because he was on a paddleboard and the lake was beautiful.
That's great. Cause the last time we talked about this, it was too choppy, right?
It was very choppy and he was in a kayak and he capsized. But this morning, it was beautiful. The sun kind of like came out while we were out there. Like it was just like such an incredible way to like start the day. It was like with a lake swim and workout and paddleboard. Like it was just awesome.
Well, no wonder that you're
I'm
in such
having
a
a
good
good
mood at the
day.
start of this week.
I
Yeah.
know. I
Good
know.
for you.
I feel very fortunate that I do not have lake access from my house, but we are best friends with our neighbors and they literally were like, "You guys can come use our lake access anytime." And me and Pat were like, "We're going to take that offer very seriously." And so we
Yeah.
use it all the time.
That is really nice. Good neighborhood.
I know. It's a really great neighborhood. That's it. That was our good vibes. This is it for this week's episode. We will not sadly have a new episode of Good Vibes next week because we'll all be busy doing our live show in DC. But you can watch that live show in DC if you really, need us in your lives. It will be available on YouTube and on our podcast feed afterwards. You also do not want to miss Claire Hutton on Friendlies this week. Then we've got those TWG lives after all 3 U.S. Women's National Team games this window. And we've got a Euros preview pod with Anita Asante dropping this Friday. We have a lot of fun content coming up, and we're starting to gear towards this U.S. Women's National Team, towards the Euros. We're so excited for the summer. We're going to have so much to experience alongside you all. So please make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast feed and our YouTube channel if you're listening to this on audio. Don't forget that YouTube channel is always there. You can come there. You can see our cute little faces while we do this podcast. You can also follow along with us across all social media at Women's Game MIB. All right, everybody. That's it for today.
I'm Becky Sauerbrunn.
And I'm Sam Mewis. Love you guys.
Bye.